And y'all don't know what I went through.
Do you have a cart in your hands right now?
Nike Talk was that place that spiraled what you enjoy now.
Anyone who brought a Kobe shoe in, I would clean it for free.
Man, Melo was better than a lot of people in the league.
I saw my favorite jerseys, that one, the Barkley.
Kobe 4s.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 64. Welcome to the year 2025. First time in a long time. This is the Dandon and RJ Machismo podcast. This is Dandon. My co-host RJ Machismo could not be here today, but he did send our hellos to everyone and especially to our guests this evening. So we got the homie Bobby Mullins hailing by ways of Seattle, originally from Oklahoma. So how's it going, Bobby?
It's going well, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm grateful for the time and the opportunity, man. Thank you.
Exactly. Oh, hey, no problem, man. We'll like to. I see you got your stuff lined up in the background. I see you got you got a Julio All-Star jersey there. I see man, you're just peeking stuff over there, man. I see a Chicago Blackhawk jersey. See some shoes in the back. So I know you're gonna talk more about your Tulsa to Seattle thrift small business. So, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming on, and you let me know if you're ready to go.
Let's roll, man. It took me a little bit to get the room cleaned up, so hopefully I did it right, man. So
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Like, we wouldn't have it any other way. So, this is, we're a simple podcast, like. We came a long way, but hey, man, I totally understand. I had the exact setup, so I can totally relate to you. All right, Bobby. So, tell us more about yourself.
so I'm a soon-to-be 40-year-old. I turn 40 next weekend, actually, which don't really want to talk about too much of that. But yeah, originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Lived there for the first 34 and a half years of my life. And then my wife and I moved to the Pacific Northwest in September of 2019. Just wanted to experience a different style of life and different than what we were always used to. And, just trying to find adventures and just have a better life for ourselves because like we saw an opportunity. And I mean, the way it all kind of worked out was kind of crazy, but I'm so thankful for where we live. I love being out here in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, how could you not love uh Sunday morning football starting at 10 o'clock in the morning, man? It's so good. But yeah, so been here 5.5 years and really passionate about sports and collecting. And I've think that, my mother at a very early age was instrumental in this, getting me involved in collecting different things and being very supportive of my hobbies. Like, for example, when you're like little and you first start like losing teeth, like usually the tooth fairy comes and gives you money. Well, I didn't get money. I got baseball cards. Like I always got baseball cards, and so uh, that kind of kicked off a part of my. I collect baseball cards. I collect sports cards. Still to this day, not nearly as heavy as I have in like previous times during my life, but got that started at a really young age. My mom also, unfortunately, my parents got divorced when I was really little too. So my mom was like Superman to us. And a lot of times, working, Monday through Friday, long hours, you just basically have like a weekend kind of to decompress and like chill out. Well, it's kind of hard to do when you have two little kids at, probably like ages 5 to 7 for me. And then my sister was like 3 or 4. And so like that early morning, like Saturday, you're like watching cartoons and uh, eating breakfast and everything like that. It gives my mom kind of a opportunity to kind of unwind and clean the house and all that good stuff. Well, she would kind of like tell us like just sit there and like eat your cereal. Like so, we're supposed to be like behaving ourselves while she's getting what she needs to done. And that kind of kicked off. another one of like my passions, which is like sports logos and learning just about different sports at that age. And especially being in like Oklahoma, like we didn't have nearly as much exposure to a lot of the different like sports. So a lot of times you pick the cereal box that has like the, you know, t eat 3 or 4 boxes of cereal, send in the barcodes, and we'll send you like a t-shirt or a hat or whatever team you want. So I would spend my time at the breakfast table looking at the back of the cereal boxes and like studying the logos and just like kind of like learning about things like that way. Kind of what exposed me to like hockey because I didn't know anything about hockey back then. I just knew what the team names were and the logos. And so I've always just been like fascinated by that kind of thing. I love growing up. I loved college basketball. That's probably like my passion. Just that golden era of like mid 90s up until like through the 2000s was some of the best basketball I've ever seen. I really studied it. A lot of my favorite players, unfortunately, didn't really do much in the NBA, but it was an exciting time to be a college basketball fan during like those years. Really also kind of exposed me to the side of collecting and studying what like the players are wearing, what shoes they're rocking, what gear they have off the court, all of like that good stuff. I attribute to maybe not just college basketball, but all the sports in general. Just like the 90s was such a different like time period where you didn't have the exclusive manufacturers deals. So like, the NFL has like 3 or 4 different manufacturers making jerseys. You have like starter popping off. You have like logo athletic pro player, like all these different companies doing all this really, really cool stuff. And you couldn't help but like notice it like during like that time frame. Um, so like I'm very, very much nostalgic with stuff. I love that time period. And that's kind of where I'm still learning about stuff. I don't know everything from like those like time periods, but that's part of growing. You're never too old to like learn something like new, something that you didn't know. And um, there's always like something to chase too. So I really dig that era of my life.
Yeah, that's dope, man. Like you pretty much wrapped it up because we're pretty much closing age because you're an 80s baby like I am. And I think that was like the golden era of like you said, sports, um, playing, just doing things like cereal. Like I remember like General Mills will always have something that you can redeem. And I always wanted that golden ticket from what was it, the Captain Crunch. Like you get like I think money if you get the golden ticket. I think it was like $1,000 or something. I mean, that was a big deal. Like, you just trying to like try to like dig through the cereal, and if you don't get it, you get a little keychain or some little plastic toy that you would get. So, like I'm very appreciative of of our era, and especially that you were touching in like the mid 90s to early 2000s of college NCAA. I think those were like, in my opinion, the best players that we saw grow up to, from college to the NBA and to the Hall of Fame. Because I know you're a Gonzaga fan since moving into Seattle, right?
That started like that even started like back like 2000, like 99, 2000, like
Okay.
when they made that first initial run to the Elite Eight. We hopped on the bandwagon. Like I admit it, like I'm not like a Zag for life, but like for most of my life, I'll say that much. But like just they had that underdog mentality similar to the University of Tulsa, which is my other like passionate, like I'm a huge University of Tulsa college basketball fan. Those were like my two teams growing up, but they were like so similar in a sense that they were always like the underdog. But the big difference is obviously Gonzaga's been able to like sustain this like long-term success, and they've also like turned themselves into this college basketball powerhouse. which is kind of incredible. Like when you think about it, they haven't missed an NCAA tournament since '99. I think it's the second longest streak behind Kansas. I think Kansas has the longest streak in college basketball with NCAA tournament appearances, and Gonzaga's second. Um, but then like to go from like, having to find those diamonds in the rough recruits to getting McDonald's All-Americans now, like just about every single year. Like the kids want to go play it in Gonzaga. I mean, it's crazy.
Yep.
But it's been one heck of a ride. It's been wild to just kind of watch from the beginnings from like afar. And now we're in the Pacific Northwest, so it's not like too far. Uh, I still haven't been able to get out to a game though. That's like my bucket list. That's like
Oh,
my
you
number
got
one bucket
to.
list item right now.
You got to.
Um, I I need to find a freaking bag of money to go take with me
I
to
know. I hear you.
get the tickets, man. It's just, the arena seats like 6,000, and they've never not had a sellout. So you basically have to know somebody or find somebody wanting to sell like the tickets to even get in the building. So fingers crossed it happens like one day soon. But I've been able to like see them in like neutral sites. I got to see them in the NCAA tournament in Portland a couple years ago, so that was a cool experience. But yeah, no, I love basketball. I love college basketball. I'm thankful for the teams that I get to root for.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's nice that you have an eclectic you have a selective amount of like teams that you root for. I mean, it doesn't have to be within the same state, but it's nice that you cheer for a different state for a different sport. So I think that's pretty dope because it just brings more you just appreciate it more, right? Like how,
Sure.
this more you learn more about the state, more about the players. So I think that's awesome that you're very like eclectic as far as like you're well versed with the many types of, things. So what I wanted to ask you with this one, Bobby, is a very important question. So what got you into collecting sports apparel?
So, like, kind of going back to like those early years. So, you're talking like mid 90s to like late 90s, early 2000s. Kind of going back to what I was saying about like you start paying more attention to what the players are wearing, like the jerseys, the shorts, their shoes, especially like all these things. So, like one thing kind of like led to another. So, like growing up for me, like it was a big deal to get like a pair of basketball shoes. Like, and then we were expected to kind of like basically my mom would buy a pair and it'd be strictly for like games. Like you don't wear them to school, you don't wear them like because you want to keep the traction nice, so you're not like slipping and sliding, falling all over yourself on the court. But then the expectation was after the season, then you were able to like beat them into the ground. So like for me, that's kind of like paying attention to sneakers started at an early age too, and it was a big deal to get pairs. And my mom like had to sacrifice a lot just to like make it happen. So like I am so like appreciative. I don't know like if you can see it behind me. There's up on the top shelf. There's a OG Jordan 14 box. So I've got a pair of like
Silver
original
box.
like four. I've
Yeah.
got an original pair of 14s up there, and it's not the original pair I had when I was a kid. Uh, but that was the first pair of Jordans I ever got, and my mom like camped out for them, and
Wow.
like I mean like not like overnight, but like the store like I think I don't know, I don't remember the exact store, but I just remember like the store had to like open at like 7 or 8 that morning, which like the mall didn't open till like 10, I don't think. But she got there early and like lined up and got me a pair, and it was just like a huge sacrifice for her just because it's not like a when you're trying to make sure you got a roof over your head, make sure you got food on the table for your kids. Uh it's not like a normal thing to do something like that, but she was able to like make sacrifices to make it work. um and so like that was kind of my gateway into like sneakers was that pair. But then like kind of continuing too. So like going back to like I said, I'm a huge Tulsa fan. Tulsa for like the 90s had great coach after great coach after great coach who went on to do like bigger and better things. Like Tubby Smith took Tulsa to two Sweet 16s, 94, 95, and then left to take the Georgia job. for like a year. Then he goes to Kentucky and wins a national championship. Well, after Tubby left, they got Steve Robinson, who was there just a short time, got him to an NCAA tournament, left, went to Florida State, and kind of did that for a couple years until they let him go. He ends up becoming like Roy Williams' top assistant at Kansas and then North Carolina for 20 something years. And then I think he ended up finishing up with Bill Self over the last couple, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that. After Steve Robinson left, then they got Bill Self, who like Bill Self's like arguably like top 5 coach now in college basketball history. You know, he's been at Kansas now 23 years, but he led Tulsa to a Elite Eight, which was like a Cinderella run, and ended up taking the Illinois job, which, I mean, I can't blame him. I remember at the time being like devastated. It happened. He took the Illinois job during his basketball camp during the summer. So I was at his basketball camp, and in the middle of the camp, he took the job. So like one of the assistant coaches who was also helping like running it, like told us, everyone's just like, dude, what the heck? You're leaving? Like you just went to Elite Eight. Like, why are you leaving? And it's like, well, it's Illinois, it's Big Ten. They just they also just built a brand new like practice facility, and they threw a bunch of money at him. So I can't really blame him. But the next year, so this is like really where my collecting, like where I really started paying attention to like not just jerseys and shorts and shoes, but like some of the stuff that the players got. So I'm sorry, this is a long story too, but after Bill left, they got Buzz Peterson from Appalachia State. So he was only at Tulsa for 1 year, and they won the NIT that year. They won the postseason
Yeah.
NIT. But the cool thing was, so around that same time period, Jordan Brand had just now kind of branched away from under the Nike umbrella and created their like basically their own clothing brand and everything else. So that 90 or 2001 season, I believe that was the first year that Jordan Brand sponsored uniforms, if I remember correctly.
College uniforms, yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so I'll ask you too. Do you know which the first school to have the Jordan uniforms was? It wasn't Tulsa.
Cincinnati and Cal.
Those were two of them. So the very first one was actually North Carolina A&T.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right.
So it's like kind of crazy that they would like pick like a random like very small school to do this, but then like it became like a regional thing.
Yeah.
So like you said, you had St. John's in the East, you had Cal in the West, you had Cincinnati in the Midwest. There was one other school that got sponsored by Jordan Brand that year. It was the University of Tulsa. So, which is like crazy.
That's
And the
dope.
the the, the kind of link to this is you got to go back to the coach. So Buzz Peterson was the coach. Buzz Peterson was also Michael Jordan's roommate in
Yep.
college
I
while he was at
remember
UNC.
I wrote a school a book and a book a paper on Michael Jordan. That's how I knew about Buzz Peterson. That was his roommate
Yeah.
at North Carolina.
Yeah, so it's like crazy. So they got Jordan jerseys, shorts, shoes, like the whole thing, but it's only for 1 year. And I remember so badly wanting just like a jersey or shorts. Like, let me find something. And they didn't sell any of it in stores. So the only people who got it were the players. And to this day, I have never seen a single piece of it come up. Like I don't search for it like daily. Maybe I should start
You
again.
should.
But like I've never seen a single piece of it come up for sale. So that's like my
That's your
number one
hunt.
thing
That's your hunt.
yeah, that's the thing I'm always going to be like hunting for. The only thing I've ever seen out in the wild was another fan somehow got a hold of one of the shooting shirts, and he would wear it to the
What?
TU games. And at the time, I was too shy to want to like go talk to him, and I wasn't about to be like, hey, can you give me alley oop off your back? Let me
Yeah,
get that from you. But
yeah.
it's just crazy. Like I don't know where any of that stuff ended up. Like I wanted to believe that it's still in a storage somewhere on campus. And I would like, if they would just like, I would pay money to like, let me go like dig for like 2 hours in like the uniform closet. Let me go find this stuff. It's like I just always wanted it. And that kind of like spurred like so much other stuff because then you start paying attention more to like what the players are getting from the
Man,
schools. And it just kind of spiraled out of control from there.
Now you got me curious, Bobby. Now I want to see North Carolina. I mean, Jordan Brand Tulsa stuff now. I did hear about Buzz Peterson getting getting something from Jordan. I did not know it was a sponsorship for one season.
Yeah.
That's
What's crazy is all those teams got
crazy.
the sponsorship before UNC too. UNC didn't even have Jordan's
Yeah,
brand sponsoring yet.
yeah.
So pretty
That's
crazy.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's that's awesome though. So I know you have a lot of apparel that you collect. I know you do the NBA, and also you did also NHL, MLB, um, football too. You also follow football. So I know you also have a business too, called Oklahoma to Seattle Thrift. So tell us more about that.
So again, I'm going to apologize in advance. This is probably a little bit of a long story, but there's context, to kind of understand the beginnings of it. But yeah, I kind of, I've always sold things on the side to like fund other things. Like I've always, one collection's always kind of led to like another. So like I was, kind of alluded to earlier, I collected cards when I was younger. Collected cards really hard until about 2012 and got into got into sneakers. Started like paying more attention, like seeing like before like 2012, I would say like from like 2003 through 2012, like I didn't pay a lick of attention to sneakers. Like I didn't know anything about what was coming out, what people were wearing, any of that stuff. Um, but I remember walking into like a Foot Locker with a friend that day and seeing Penny Flight Ones, like retroed around 2012 or 2013. I
Yeah,
think it was like around that time. Seeing those and being like, oh my gosh, I had those when I was little. Like, what the heck? Why are these on the shelf? And then like somebody explaining to me, it's like, oh well, they started re-releasing shoes from the past. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So like that kind of kickstarted like my sneaker collecting too. But sneakers are expensive, and at the time, I was barely working like a full-time job. So I was like, okay, rather than like have all this money come flying out of my bank account, I'm kind of getting kind of jaded on collecting cards. So maybe I'll start selling cards to fund my new sneaker hobby. And so like one thing has always like kind of like led to another. Um, and so like I've had like an eBay account for 20 something years, like selling and buying and everything like that. Well, I've always, like I said, I've always used one hobby to fund another. And as I've gotten older and, at the time I was making some really, really good money. Um, my wife and I are still trying to buy a house, but I anytime I wanted to like purchase something, I always felt guilty about taking it out of our savings account or our regular spending account. So I would I started back when we first moved out here, like after the pandemic, I started thrifting and using that money to kind of like fund some like really cool like I don't know the right word, overly excessive purchases and adventures and stuff like that. So like I thrifted pretty hard for about 2 years and it paid for a trip out to Phoenix and for Mariners fantasy camp. Like that was solely funded on thrifting items. So it was always just kind of like it's like a side job, a side hustle, like a hobby of mine. Fast forward to November of 2023. My wife and I are celebrating our sixth wedding anniversary in Chicago. We're on a train going to Wrigley Field to check it. I hadn't been to Wrigley. Like I'm a huge Cubs fan, but I hadn't been to Wrigley since like 2012. I wanted to see like I hadn't seen any of the new stuff that they built around the ballpark. Like I just wanted to like check it out. It's just like one of my favorite places on earth. And I to this day I'll always say I've never had a bad time at the ballpark. Like win or lose, whoever's playing, I don't care. Like it's just a happy place for me. But we were on our way, and I get a phone call from my boss at the time, and while we're celebrating a wedding anniversary, I got laid off of my job.
oh
Uh,
no.
so it's just kind of like a oh crap, like what do we do type thing. And at that point, I just kind of I took the rest of the year just to kind of like decompress and kind of figure some stuff out, and was like, you know, I'm gonna regret this if I don't do this, but I'm gonna try to turn my little side hustle, my hobby. I'm gonna try to turn this into a legitimate business. Like I would much rather do this and like struggle a little bit financially rather than like sit at a desk for like 8 to 5, 40 hours a week. Again, after this, at the time it didn't feel like traumatic, but I guess it was a little traumatic like situation just because never in a million years did we expect something like this to happen. So like I started, taking it a little bit more serious and thrifting a whole lot more and just trying really, really hard to like find really, really cool items that I thought that people would have like an interest in. And it's been a slow process, but we're making things work and we're still able to do like really fun, cool things. And the business is slowly but surely like growing. Like it's not exactly where I want it to be necessarily. Like I would love to be able to go to the post office with like 25 items in a bag every morning, go here, scan these for me. But that's not reality at the moment. But it's definitely like started picking up, which is nice. And it's provided some really cool opportunities and some really cool finds all along the way. So it started with thrifting and then it's kind of branched out. I've started to kind of diversify where I source stuff now too. Like I don't want to give away all my secrets or anything like that, but I've started reaching out to, the professional sports teams and trying to like work deals with them on stuff. And happy to announce like about a month and a half ago, I got my first wholesale deal done with the Philadelphia Phillies. So
Nice.
that was kind of
Congratulations,
a cool
man.
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
That's dope. Hey, that's breaking news here. That's the first time I've heard that. So,
Yep. I need to get back on my YouTube game because I've been trying to do videos and ran into a little bit of writer's block. I feel like this like last month, but that's my next videos. I'm gonna try to do something on that because what's not to get completely off subject, but what Nike and Major League Baseball Fanatics did to the Phillies uniforms starting in 2024 is like such a such a terrible thing. I'm really like disappointed because like the Phillies like they had the chain stitching on the front of their jersey. They were so nice. And then like 2024, they got rid of it. Like they did like a bunch of like they got rid of like a lot of the small details that made those like Phillies uniforms. Like I'm not a huge Phillies fan or anything, but they had some like, in my opinion, some criminally underrated uniforms just because of the details on them. And for them to basically massacre the jerseys and just like basically ruin them, it was a tough thing to see. So I wanted to grab a couple of from previous years before they were become extinct. So
wow. Well, first of all, congratulations with your partnership with the Phillies, and I know, all your hard work and dedication brought you to avenues that, that presented with this opportunity. So I myself would like to congratulate, that's all you, and with and all that hard work that you did. So that's, I wanted to tell you that.
sure. It's not like a huge deal, but it's a start. It's something to like build off of. So I don't want anybody to get the like wrong impression that it's just like this like crazy thing. It's a building block. That's what I call
Yeah.
a lot of what's happened to me. It's all building blocks to something that I don't even see yet, but I believe like good stuff's gonna happen. So
Yeah, it's dope. And I'll ask later on about your experience with Fanatics. I think that's an awesome story. But I want to ask a question about your collecting. And I'm sorry, the thrifting. What was the one of all the items that you've collected in your lifetime? What was the one item that was rare and you had, you were in the fence where you wanted to keep it or you wanted to sell it? What was that one item for you?
I'm glad you asked. So I've got it sitting right next to me, and I kind of came prepared with like a few things. So if there's like something that this will like lead up to like later, that hopefully that's totally cool too. But um, so I found this particular pair. It's a pair of cleats. Thrifting in the Seattle area. I'm not going to say where because uh, you know, I've kind of had to work to find where the places that get the good stuff is. But my wife and I on a Saturday morning went to this particular thrift, and uh, was going through some of the sporting goods. Like they had the sporting goods separate from a lot of the other stuff, but for whatever reason, they put like soccer cleats and baseball cleats and rollerblades and ice skates and all that other stuff, like in a separate area from the rest of the other shoes. So we go over there, and um, so I started like looking, and out of the corner of my eye, this pair of cleats caught my eye. I'm like, dude, what the heck are these? And my wife's like standing there, and all of a sudden, like I grab and I look at them, and like, we have to go. Like we gotta go, like check out. Like we gotta go. Like I didn't want anybody to like see me with this pair of cleats in my hands. Um, and because I kind of like I looked at them, and I was like, okay, this is some crazy stuff right here. So I'm gonna show you. So what these are, if you can kind of see. So this logo right here is the first thing that like tipped me off.
Felix.
That's
That's King
Felix
Felix.
Hernandez. That's
Sheesh.
his like logo. So like Nike designed a logo for him. And so these are, as far as I can tell, they've even like you're not gonna be able to see, but they've still got the 3-4, and I think the other one says 3-4. They both have 3-4 insoles in them. So these are, I'm like, okay, these are Felix's. And then I start looking at the details. Like, I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, but like on the swoosh, there's iridescent crown print on the
Oh
swoosh.
wow.
So these are a Sunday alternate. Like the Mariners have like that, home games they wear navy a lot of time or white, but like on Sunday home games, Sunday afternoon home games, they have the kind of the old school colors, but they put it on the new style jersey that they wear. So I found these and I was like, okay, we got to go. We got to leave. Like, I don't want anybody to see me have these because like people love Felix out here, man. That's their guy. Like, it's just, you know, he pitched for damn near 20 years, 20 seasons with the Mariners, like with one team. Like, that's unheard of anymore.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, so yeah, I didn't want people to see me have these in my hands or in my car. So we ran to the checkout, paid for them, took them back to the car, and I was like, yeah, I don't need to go back in there. I'm good with these. So like I started like looking at these, and come to find out, um, and I don't know if it's gonna pick up or not, but like on the inside of there's a number 17 that's like written in Sharpie. So these are like, I don't know the story, but Felix didn't apparently wear these. So Mitch Haniger was number 17. I found photos. I get images of Haniger wearing these cleats. So these are like Mitch Haniger's cleats that I guess Felix maybe like gave him. I'm not really sure. The other thing, they're my size. So I was like, I I'm in no hurry to like get rid of these. Like I don't know exactly what they're worth, but that was like probably the first really like, oh crap moment I've had in the thrift store where I'm just like, I gotta get out of here before somebody sees me, because if somebody sees these, they're gonna like I don't want to
Gonna
get
follow
like have a
you. Yeah,
confrontation or anything,
yeah.
So um like I
That's
tried to reach out like one time to each of them on Instagram, but I didn't get a response. So like maybe like someday I'll be able to ask them like what's the story behind these. But uh $20. I got those for $20 in the thrift. So
insane.
yeah. And
Insane.
as far as I can tell, because like they're labeled as a sample. So I don't know how many pairs of them are even like in existence either too. So
Maybe like one or two, right? Because I'm sure Felix has one for himself and then an extra pair for him to just in case he rough
well
one up.
yeah. And they only wear those on Sunday home games, so they probably only got like one or two pairs.
That's
And I
insane.
mean, he's got a pretty underrated cleat game too. Like if you go look at like pictures of Felix's cleats, like he's always got something just nasty on his feet. So like there's probably like a 1 or 2 season. Like I think that Hirachi is just like the Alpha Hirachi 2 or something like that. It was like a
Hmm.
2-year model. So they like 19 or 2019, 2020, I think was like probably the only 2 years that style cleat was worn. And then they went to the Hirachi 3 starting in 21, 22. So
Yeah, I think between in my just looking through because of course like Ken Griffey Jr., right? Like he was the one, that started the cleat. Like then people start noticing cleats, and then Kenny Lofton from the Indians, right? With the Diamond Furies. Me and you talked about that. We love that shoe. Like it's one of those like East Bay like pages. Oh, I wish I had them, but I couldn't get them because I was only like 9, 10 years old, right? Um, I think it's between Felix, King Felix, um, CC Sabathia has the best PEs, and now I think it's Mookie. Mookie got some crazy stuff, man.
Perks of being a Jordan Brand athlete, I tell you,
Right.
man,
Uh,
they do anything. They can do anything that they want. Like they just like, I want this, and then they're like done, man. So
Like
yeah,
he
it's
just popped off in the World Series wearing like was he wearing like some gold like cleats? That's insane, man.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
know a lot of the old timers, the guys we grew up with, are very salty about guys' cleat games now because like that was like you said back then, it's like almost unheard of. Like
yeah,
definitely had to be the top dog to get stuff like that. So
exactly. So now that we're talking about like one of your grails, and I hope that do you keep that like in a glass frame, like a glass case? Like where do you keep your that Felix cleat?
I mean, like basically, it's kept back here with like the rest of them. But like since I
Okay,
didn't have like a box, like I try to keep if it's a pair of shoes that I intend on keeping and wearing plenty. Like I try to keep my boxes.
okay,
That's a collector in me that like says, oh, got to keep the boxes, got to keep everything like
yep,
nice and neat and clean and fresh. But like those, I don't really have anything, so they're just kind of like for the time being right now, they're just in like a one of those front case
gotcha.
plastic tub.
That's
Yeah.
dope,
Like
man.
I ran out of room in my display case behind me, so
No, it's all
uh
right. Like I said, I know
yeah.
the feeling when you're stacking stuff, just to stack stuff like Jenga. So
Yeah.
that's a common theme for like like hobbyists like us, right? So now you kicked off with your favorite apparel. So if you want to like share a couple more items that you own.
Like apparel items?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. I got a bunch like oh this is gonna be a mess, but I'm gonna try to do this the right way. So like the first thing, like I said, I'm a huge Gonzaga fan. Um, and I found this was another like thrift find. And I haven't seen any other ones like this. And from my knowledge, like I don't think this is like team issue or anything, but it's kind of crazy. Like it's a full zip, like a hoodie jacket type deal, but it's got like this oversized like Nike swoosh on it, and then the Gonzaga logo. And I don't know if the camera is gonna like pick it up or not, but
oh, that's
depending on like how
that's
you like look at it,
crazy.
the color changes. So it's like a navy, but if you like look at it to the side, it
Uh-huh.
turns red. And I've never really seen like another
Wow.
one of those. And so it's kind of wild to me because I was like, these were never like on like Fanatics website or Gonzaga's team store or anything. They were never available like that way. So, um,
Have you seen like a any like sports athlete like in Gonzaga wear that
and
jacket?
I haven't done a deep dive yet, and I probably should at some point because I'm sure there's
You-
probably photos. Gonzaga's like social media team does a really good job of like catching the players like walking like
Okay.
into the arena on their way to like the locker room and stuff, and it shows off like all their fits. But I would have thought like this would have been like a travel piece, like from them like going to catch the bus or the plane or something like that.
Yeah.
I just had never really done like a deep dive on it. So um this isn't like anything like super duper special, but just to kind of like give a comparison and to kind of like educate people, I guess. So like what makes this one special is the sleeve.
The
So it
elite.
has that
Yep.
elite branding on it. So for anybody who's interested, if you're finding like, especially like with Nike and Nike basketball collegiate pieces, if it has that elite branding on it, it's team issued. Like you can't buy elite branded stuff at like the retail level. So if you see that, like if you're out thrifting and if you see this somewhere on a Nike piece, it's team issued. So you should probably, obviously depending on the price, you should probably grab it if you're looking to like resell stuff basically. The other thing with this one, I guess the cool thing about this was, do you know who George Keel is?
Yeah, he's from
Okay.
the sneaker guy.
Yeah, so like a couple of years ago, like he started doing YouTube videos where they did like arena tours and like locker room tours.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so they did Gonzaga. Like one of the other hosts for that, the Sports Dissected is what it's called. They did a Gonzaga tour, and then
Okay.
at the end of most of the episodes, the school would like give them some gear. It's like, hey, give this away to like somebody, like have a contest or whatever. So they had a contest, and I ended up winning the Gonzaga one. So I got that hoodie, and then a T-shirt and a couple pairs of socks and like a pair of like fleece line shorts or whatever. So it was just like kind of like a cool thing. I was like, oh man, I actually won something. So
Nice, nice.
I rock it proudly. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I got this straight from the university. Not directly, but like I got it directly from the school. So that's pretty cool. Um, next piece. Okay, so there's like a bunch of these, and this is kind of like also more recent. Um, but like one of my favorite things about like gear and is the exclusivity of some of it. Like some of this stuff, like I don't think that Nike in particular like makes stuff on purpose to make it like scarce or rare, but like when they make stuff specifically like for the team, for the players, the coaches, like the staff, and that's the only way like you can get it, like that stuff becomes pretty rare, and then it's hard to track down. And then also with like the way that like Nike names their shirts and stuff, it's always like super long, so it makes it really hard to search for online, at least in my experience. Like I just have to, like, it feels like I'm finding a needle in a haystack when I find it. um but like over the last couple of years, like Nike's done these like very lightweight, very thin, breathable uh material like under the jersey, like warm-up shirts for like MLB. I've got the Mariners home in a way, and then I've also got like the Sunday alternate, which was a nightmare to track down. Took me a while to find one of those. Um, but I just love these because there's a little bit of versatility to them. Like they're very basic, but I love just like wearing them to work out in, or wearing them around the house and just being like super duper comfy boys all the time. Um, but they become really hard to track down because they're not sold at the retail level. And the only place, like I've tried to get some through teams. Like that's the only way I've ever been able to find them outside of like eBay or directly contacting the team. Like the team will sometimes sell them, but the pricing on them's a little aggressive. I've found more times than not. So it's kind of like, well, do I really want to spend the money on this? I might have better luck just finding one cheaper on eBay. So, um, this is another one. So this one's a little bit more probably rare. So you've got the short sleeve Chicago Cubs, and this one's actually like team. It's like team issued, player worn. But I've got a short sleeve, and I got the long sleeve in it. The long sleeve one is actually belonged to Anthony Rizzo, their like first baseman
That's
for many
sick.
years. So that was a needle in the haystack eBay find because the person who listed it didn't know what they had. So I got that for $13 on eBay one night. The only problem is I've got the short sleeve in a large and the long sleeve in an X 2XL. I need an XL for it to fit me right. So I'm desperately, if anybody out there watching or listening has an XL in either one of these, let me know. Reach out to me. I will pay you for it. Also looking for the regular Cubs version in the short sleeve. I've got the long sleeve, but I think it's in like the wash or something. So, um, and then to kind of cap off that little stack, I know you're a Washington Nationals fan, so I'm gonna show off the long sleeve City Connect that just got discontinued. So this one was worn by uh, manager Dave Martinez, I believe.
Oh
So
man, yeah, I love the
so
cherry blossoms. That was my favorite alternate jersey.
yeah. So like I've got this one, and I've got a couple other ones. I should probably, you know what? I'm gonna send you one. I've got one for you.
Oh, I
I'm gonna send you
appreciate
one.
that, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you one, man.
Hey, man,
But
appreciate it.
those are just like they're becoming a little bit more like easy to find because like a lot of times the players are just dumping these. Like they'll dump them at
Yeah,
Goodwill or whatever, or the team will like cycle through them or try to like resell them for crazy
yeah,
amounts of money. But like some of those, like you just because of how hard it is to like put in the right words to search for it on eBay,
It's
like it's just
insane.
it's hard to find.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thrilled to like find the cherry blossom one because I was like, oh crap, like I don't know if I'm gonna see another one of these. And then as luck would have it, I came across a couple other ones. So um but yeah, those are just like super rare, unintentionally rare, I think, by Nike standards. Um, which also kind of leads me to the next one. So I love this is like one of my go-tos. If I'm going to like a game, like and it's a little bit cold, like I'm throwing one of these ThermaFit full zip like player hoodie things on. And these are kind of interesting because these solid color ones, like I've got the Cubs one. I've also got like the solid color Mariners one. That took me over a year to track one of those down.
That's
I think they
crazy.
unintentionally made these rare. And I think part of the reason why is because the solid colors, 2020, so you have your COVID season. So fans weren't allowed to like even go to like the games. So they just like they made a bunch of them for 2020, but nobody could get their hands on them because nobody could, go to games, nobody
Hmm.
could really like shop. Um, so like they made those like there just isn't a lot of them because they're like, well, we don't have anybody to sell them to 2020, so we don't really need to make any more for like the next season. So I think just whatever like they made on that first run's kind of what's there. And then like 22, 23, and then last year they had like the two color. So this one's like way more plentiful, but like I love wearing these so much. I had to get the two tone. And then I think if I saw correctly, like Fanatics is bringing those back again this year, but they flipped the colors and then they made the logos like a one color type deal. I think I saw like pics like 2 or 3 days ago, and I just was kind of like I was like I don't know that I really need any more of these, so I'm just gonna like I'll just rock with what I got. And
That's awesome,
so yeah,
man.
all right. So the last I've got two more, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Go for it, man. The floor
All
is
right.
yours, Bobby.
So we go back to the 90s. Like I know I did a lot of modern stuff. Now I'm gonna go like with some throwback stuff. So like we were talking about, the 90s was such a wild and crazy time for gear and different jersey manufacturers and everything like that. So I don't know all the history behind this one other than University of Tulsa for it was either 1 or 2 seasons. They were Apex. Apex did jerseys and practice jerseys for them, and then 2 years, and then two more, and then the next they got the Nike sponsorship, which led to the Jordan sponsorship, and then back to the Nike. But for like a year or two, they were actually sponsored by Converse. So Converse made basketball jerseys in the 90s. And so I've got this is a replica, like one I actually bought in a Foot Locker. Um, it's like 1996 on like
That's
my mom would take me
crazy.
jersey shopping for my birthday every year. And instead of having like birthday parties and stuff, like I was like, give me jerseys. Like, let's just go get a jersey or two. But like Foot Locker in Tulsa had these. And so I was like, oh man, I really want one of those. Um, but yeah, it's just like
That's sick.
one of those like rare things that like nobody talks about. So like Tulsa was sponsored by Converse. Kentucky University of Kentucky was also a Converse school for a couple years. Do you remember those like the denim
Yeah.
jerseys?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
I remember. Kentucky. Kentucky was like the sole. What they were like sponsored by Converse, right? When with the
yeah,
React gel and no, when Tubby Smith won the national championship,
yeah,
they were all sponsored. Like everyone like wore like Converse gear, including the jerseys and stuff.
yeah. And I guess the last thing, it's kind of like not a huge deal, but Shea Seals is probably one of the best Tulsa players of all time. Was part of that. I don't remember if they what year was it that the college all-star team beat the dream team during a scrimmage that it
Oh
wasn't
yeah,
like shown on
there's a
TV?
documentary on that.
What
94?
year was that?
No, no, no,
Was that
92, 92.
92? Okay.
That was a scrimmage that no one didn't want to like.
Right.
There was no
So
video.
yeah, I was trying to think, I was like, was it 96? And I was like, no, 96, they actually did have a scrimmage on
92, 91. Yeah, I
TV.
think 91 or 92. There was only like
Yeah.
five of them or six of them.
So Shea Seals was part of like the 96 collegiate all-star team that played against the dream team in that exhibition. And I
Okay.
think that was actually a really close game, if I remember correctly. I believe that the Dream Team was either only up a handful, just a couple of points at halftime, or they were down. But like Shea had like eight or 10 points in the first half, was like dominating. Um, but I got that signed at one of the TU basketball camps during the off season, like in between him graduating, and then he tried to play for the Lakers and then blew out his ACL like in the preseason, so he never got a chance basically. But I got him just like sign that for me like when I was little, so kind of a cool piece. Like just the fact that it's like a Converse jersey was like cool enough, but then like to get it autographed too, like
Uh,
so if we're talking gear, like we can't not talk about. I don't want to call it the GOAT of sports apparel, but it's up there. It's got to be like on the Mount Rushmore. Like, and if you know what we're talking about, we're talking about the starter jackets. So this was
ooh.
another thrifted find of mine right
Oh
here.
my goodness.
So
That's not a reissue either. That's from the 90s.
no, this is the OG, man.
Wow.
This was this was a thrift find way out in the middle of nowhere, far away from like Seattle. I saw this on a new rec coming out, and like, thank gosh I was in the right place at the right time. So I had to like snag it. I'm like, I have to have this. But it's beautiful. Like you've got the standard like hat logo on the front. The back, you got the big
Oh my
compass.
God.
It's beautiful.
That's that is
So
that is a gem.
yeah. And it's like not, it doesn't have any rips or tears or anything. It's like it's in immaculate condition for its age. But this is like such a throwback to my childhood, and is like just that immediate, like you get that nostalgia like going like right away with like those. So
Have you worn it during like Mariners games?
I've worn it a handful of times because like it gets cold like beginning of the season, end of the season. Um, like traditionally it doesn't really get like that cold,
Hmm.
but the stadium is so close to the water, so that you get that ocean, like the Puget Sound breeze
Yep.
coming in like at night. Like it might say it's like 45 or 50 outside, but then like in the stadium it's like 30s with that breeze. It's just so cold. Like even like having the roof covering,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's still airflow coming in there, and it does get chilly like beginning and end of the season. So yeah, I've definitely busted it out and broke a few necks with that one. So
Oh, I bet. I bet. I wanted to ask you one item, Bobby, that I help you get. I'm hoping I don't want to like if it's not around you, that's cool. But I remember I messaged you like, hey, because I know you're a big Mariners Ken Griffey fan, and I was like, a friend of a friend, like my friend, shout out to Roth Vintage. I sent you a link on it, like, hey, like, what do you think about this item? I think you should get it. And I jokingly said, yeah, maybe one day if I ever like record, we do a podcast, you should wear it. So, do you have that item near you? But if not, it's cool. Like, I wanted to see if you have it.
so it's actually behind me. It's
Okay,
behind me in the display case that's
nice.
covered up with
Okay,
like jerseys, and I've got
okay.
something else in like
No,
front of it.
it's
But
cool. It's cool.
on the middle shelf there, I've got
Yeah.
like a Mariners space, and it's the smack dab middle of it. So it's like the centerpiece
Oh no,
of
it's
that
okay.
with like some of my bobbleheads and some of my
Yeah.
autographed baseball. So
So
it's like, but it's like displayed there.
you
So
want to just like briefly tell like because you know more about it. I just wanted to like I just want to just like lob you with that.
kind
Ooh.
of, yeah. So first of all, thank you for that like a couple of years ago. Like that was kind of crazy and stuff because I'd never seen one of those either.
Hmm.
So like that right there, like that ticks off one of the boxes. Like it's just like I don't know everything, and I don't know, I've never seen like every piece of apparel, but there's a few times where I've seen something and I'm just like, whoa, I've never seen that before. What the heck is that? And that was like one of those pieces. So um that ticked one of the boxes. The second box it ticked, it's in like immaculate condition. Like for its age, it's white. It's a
Yeah.
white painter's hat.
Yep.
And it's like still like pure white. It doesn't have a lot of stains on it. It doesn't have any rips or tears in it. It's in incredible condition. And so the other thing was, from what I've gathered, 1994. So that was the year the baseball had its strike.
Right. Yep.
Um, so that hat was like a giveaway item of sorts or something. because it has like Nike branding on it too, which is like super interesting for like a if it was like a giveaway or something. I'm not really sure on that part of it, but it was given out like during like the All-Star game. So it's like a Griffey painter's cap with like these like kind of like crazy like navy blue advertisements and logos on it. But it was like one of those things I don't like it's like probably like one of like only like two or three I've ever seen before. Like the other ones that I've seen were like in way worse condition and people were asking like some pretty crazy money for them, to be honest. But like I got like such a good deal on that and I wouldn't have known about it otherwise because I wasn't even like I had no idea who the guy was that was selling it. I wasn't following him on like
Yeah,
Instagram or anything, so I would have
yeah.
never seen it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and definitely because I'm trying to venture. I know we talk about do we like sneakers, but I think I'm trying to start venturing on like apparel. I'm trying to get him to be my next guest, and then he'll probably tell me like, hey, how did I don't want to get his secrets, but trying to get a little bit more background story like how he got that. So I'll make sure to share that with you. Yeah,
yeah,
he's good people. Like he's a real cool guy. And he does outsource a lot of things. Of course, doesn't want to. He won't give any gems like you. But I felt that that was the right thing for me to do. Like immediately when I saw his story, like, dude, there's there's only one person that I know that wants it. And I was like, and I even told you too. I think his asking price was a little bit okay, but I said, you know what? If you can try to work with him, he'll probably like, throw you a good deal, which I think you guys came into agreement on a good one.
it was like quick and painless. He was easy to work with, and
Yeah.
too like not like having much to like go off of either. So that's like the kind of the other thing, you a lot of times like you see somebody's price and you get kind of gun shy, especially like not knowing like doing like a research. Like I had no idea like what it was like worth or what they
Hmm.
sold for or anything like
Yep.
that. So I was kind of like, it's like, ah, this is really nice. Like, I don't, I trust people. Like, I trust people to know like what their stuff's worth. And so, like, if you're like selling something, like I take a lot of pride in this too. Like, I'm not here to like I'm not gonna get rich off any of the stuff that like I sell, but like, there's like this mutual respect and this understanding. Like, if you're gonna sell something to somebody, like, you should know what your stuff's worth and like trust that like you obviously you want to like sell it, but you want to like be fair, and it's like a respect thing, like stuff works so much better when like you have that understanding. Like you're like this guy's not trying to screw me over, like we can work together. So that's something like I try to value with like my business too. Is like I do research, I find out like what something sells for, and like I'm not trying to like rip anybody off, and like I try to negotiate a little bit too. Like that's just part of doing business. So, I understand that there's like a little bit of like leeway that needs to be given too. But yeah, no, he easy to work with and like it was like it got here in like 3 days, like all the way
Yep.
across the country in like 3 days. And I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. This is going in like the display cases like a centerpiece. So yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and his real name is Ben. So Ben's a good dude, and I'm gonna have him for sure. I've been talking to him here and there, and then I do also support him too. I do buy a lot of stuff that I got. What was the last thing I bought? I bought a. Do you remember Dare, like the drug
Yeah.
program? I bought a Dare
Yeah.
shirt from him for like $10. Like people that don't know about Dare, I don't
No.
like you have to. I remember you needed to watch the video, and then you had to be sworn in, and then you had to like get a certificate in order for you to get a Dare shirt. So that I remember it was nationally like worldwide because all of the drug stuff was going on in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, I think it was just for awareness for, like fifth. I think they only did it for like fourth to like sixth graders. I think it was dope during that time, and I never had a Dare shirt. I always got the certificate, but I always wanted one. And when he sourced me with that one, like, hey, I needed that, and it meant a lot because I think he got a white one. I got the black one that he was selling that I got, and then he recently like sourced a white shirt with the Dare logo. But it's just one of those things like nostalgia, right? That's like it'll
Absolutely.
always
It'll,
get you. Like it'll always like get you back to your childhood and the good memories. So so dope,
no,
man.
I totally feel that. And there's like the other thing too, like especially with like stuff like from like those time periods, I found in my experiences, like more times than not, like it breaks my heart when I find something and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then I can't keep this though because it doesn't fit me, or it's just like the fit's not right.
Yep.
And I've run into that like so many times because there's like so many cool pieces like that, just that nostalgia kicks in and it's like, oh, like I can't be like for my collecting self, like I only add stuff to my collection if I'm gonna wear it. Like I just can't have, like I don't like the idea of like having stuff accumulate and then it just like sits there because then it's like not appreciated. um but like like old school, kind of like going back to the NBA, like Champion did a lot of like the practice apparel, like the
Yep.
practice tees and stuff. Like
Hmm.
I love that type of stuff, but like man, the sizing on so much of that just doesn't work with me very well. So like there's been a couple of times where I found some like old school like Sonics pieces and had to like pass them on because they didn't fit right. As much as I wanted to keep them, I just couldn't. But it just
They
then the
run big.
nostalgia just kicks in.
They run
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
A large, I do have one. I have a Washington Bullets one. An extra large is like, it feels like it's like a 3X. It literally feels like a jacket. Like it is a shooting shirt, but it feels like a jacket. But it's a nice heavy material because there was no dry fit back in the day. It was just legit heavyweight, cotton. And that's what they used. And it's crazy because they used it as a pregame shirt and they sweated that thing. You can literally see somebody sweating through that if they were really like practicing on the pregame or during like the second half of the game. It's crazy, but you know that was the good times.
For
So
sure.
I wanted to ask you one more thing because I know we want to talk about sneakers, but I wanted to just talk solely about like apparel because I think you're the right person to talk about this. Um, so this will be my last question for you. So what would be your advice for people that want to collect apparel, and how would you um what would you tell your younger self like now, like where you are now?
So the first piece of advice, and I think, this is going to be kind of like one of those, you're not going to hear a lot of people say this because like a lot of people like, especially with like team issued apparel and game worn stuff, like people want you to like have this sense of this is exclusive, this is rare, this is uh you're not going to find this anywhere else. Well, what I would say to people looking to get into this is have an understanding of, and like I said, this is like saying the quiet part out loud. There's never been a time where more apparel has been produced ever. There's so much of it out right now. Like, if you feel like you find something and you don't like the price, like, it's okay to move on. Like, you are gonna more than likely, it might take a little bit of patience, but you'll find another one. Like, there's a lot of this stuff out there. Like, you see the professional athletes, the college athletes, like they're taken care of so well right now from an apparel standpoint. Like, there's I think like football, the college football teams, like every time they travel on the road, they're getting a new travel suit. Like there's just like, especially if you're like one of these big monster sponsored schools like Ohio State or Michigan or whoever, Washington, like they're getting so much of this stuff. They're always fitted right. Like, and then the minute like if something happens to it, like, oh, I spilled some of my hoodie, they just give them like a new one. So like there's like never I feel like there's never been more of this stuff out there than there is like right now. And the avenues in which like someone can go to acquire this stuff, like there's infinitely more ways to go than there was, 20 years ago. Like 20 years ago, you have like eBay, which wasn't what it is now, and then like in person garage sales, Goodwills, I mean, and then maybe making a phone call to an athletic department trying to get your hands on this stuff. Like now you've got Instagram, you got Facebook Marketplace, you got, TikTok, you've got all these places to go to try to find what you're looking for. So, uh, it's like part of the fun of collecting too is the hunt. Like you don't have to get everything on the first try. I feel like if it was like that easy, like more people would be doing it, and then you probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. So there's like something to be said about, you know, having a process in place to try to find stuff. And, if it takes a little bit of time, it takes a little bit of time. But then like when you do finally acquire it and you get it in the mail and you open it up for the first time and get to look at it, you're just gonna like, in my opinion, you're gonna enjoy it more. Um, and then too, like I think it's also like important too, like you always want to like do your research, like kind of what I was going back to like before saying like there should be like a mutual respect between a buyer and a seller. Like the seller, should be respectful with their prices, but at the same time, like you have to do your due diligence as a buyer. Like you have to know like what stuff's worth, like see if you can find sold comps, and if you can't, I mean, then it becomes a little bit more tricky, but like there's like so much information out there right now. Like you'd be doing yourself a disservice by not doing the research beforehand. And especially if you feel rushed, like if you're trying to work a deal and you're like feeling rushed, like go with your gut. If your gut's saying it's probably not a good idea, then probably like yeah, take a step back, do a little bit more research, and then like go at it again, another time. So um, you know, I I learned, through this journey too, like as much as I love selling the team issued and game use stuff, like I'm never gonna get rich off of it. Like it can't be like the sole thing that like I sell. So like you have to like branch out, like especially where I'm at in the Pacific Northwest, like people like to go outside and do lots of things like camping and hiking and things like that. So, I forced myself to become knowledgeable about other clothing categories. So like I think right now a lot of my sales come from not only like just the team stuff, but also like outdoor clothing companies. Like I do really, really well like selling stuff like that. There's an infinite amount of ways to make money today. But you have to be like the other piece of advice, like you just can't expect like everything to happen the way you want it to. Like you have to put in the time, you have to put in the effort, you have to put in the work. Like anything worth having in this life, like it takes effort. Like and I rely on, I think about that a lot. I'm like, okay, if you want something to happen, like nobody's gonna make it happen for you. You got to make it happen yourself. Like you got to put in the work, you got to put in the effort, and if you stay consistent with it, you're gonna find cool stuff. Like that's another big point. Like you have to stay consistent with this to find stuff, because more times than not, like you can figure out where stuff, goes and what the best stores are, but a lot of it is also being at the right place at the right time too. So a lot of it is luck, but a lot of it you have to do your preparation too. So
That's
yeah,
dope.
that's kind of my entry level advice, I would say.
Okay, and then my last question for you, Bobby. What would current Bobby Mullins tell younger Bobby like now? What would you tell them?
So he would tell him that never grow up,
There you
never grow
go.
up, be a kid for as long as you can. Like it's totally cool to take on like adult responsibilities, but like if younger me saw where I was today, like they would have never been able to predict it. But I through life, we learn life lessons, and there's just um I'm trying to think of the right words, but like just it's okay to be passionate about things, and you don't have to, even if you get older, you don't have to not be passionate about those things anymore. Like I think that's kind of like one of those things that's like wild to me. Like a lot of the stuff that I was interested in like 20 years ago, like I'm still interested in. And like part of me feels like conflicted about it, because conventional wisdom says, well, you're supposed to grow up, start caring more about like more adult stuff or whatever. And like I just
Hmm.
like I can't wrap my head around that, because I'm like I care too much. I care too much about sports. I care too much about, the things that I collect. And um like make sure you have a support system who understands and is willing to, if they don't understand, like they're willing to like ask questions and they want to like have an interest in it. Like make sure you have like a support system that's going to support you like no matter what. Like I think that that's like really really important. Like my wife will never understand any of the allure of me getting a bunch of jerseys because she's like, well, you can only wear one, or like shoes. You have 2 feet. Like you can only wear like one pair of shoes at a time. Why do you need so many pairs of shoes? And well, I was like, well, you're right. So I mean, like I kind of like I'm not into sneakers nearly as much because of that, but she supports what I do and she tries to understand. And even now, like she'll go thrifting with me like when she has time and she'll come through with like finds too. And I'm just like, holy crap, where did you like find that?
That's the reason
And
why
she's
I
like, I don't know,
married
I
you.
just pulled it off a rack. But I also sometimes need a second set of eyes. So I'm like, hey, would you look at this for me to make sure that like I didn't miss any spots or stains or tears? And so like having that like support is huge for me. Otherwise, like I would
Yeah,
make way more mistakes than I do right now. So
that's dope. Hey, shout out to your wife, man, because like my
for
wife too
sure.
is very supportive. She knows like I had a sneaker collection, and now I'm not as passionate as I was before. So I kind of like I'm dabbling here and there. Like now, like I'm trying to get back into like podcasting, and then now like when I see your stuff, it's like, you know what, you kind and I mean you talk like, you inspired me to look at my older like the stuff I collected when I had that hunt. And there were some items too where I had the whole set, but at that point I realized it was time to go. So, I broke some of my apparel collection, but I still kept some of them.
Yeah.
I guess it's just one of those things that you go through phases, right? Like in your life where like you went to the top of the mountain and you conquered. Now it's time for you to just go down, sit back to reality. So at this point, I just want to just hear stories like yours now. Like I want to hear like people's stories about how they collected, what they have in their collection, the things that they, mean to them. Those are the stories that I like hearing, not more about myself. It's more about, you guys. Like those are the ones that matter. So I do appreciate, all the stuff that you have such an abundance of apparels and footwear. I mean, we didn't talk about footwear. I mean, but apparel is something that it's it's something that it's something that you have to be passionate about, right? Like you were saying, it's not for everyone. Not everyone will understand, about player issued or player exclusive or game worn or retail authentic or replica, you know, one of one look-see samples that you were talking about with the Seattle Sounder soccer jersey. Um, I think it's just one of those like understandings that you have like with common people. And you can talk about sneakers, it's cool, but I think apparel is always something that you can just gravitate because you can just talk about like the past, right? Like we obtained autographs, like the one that you're talking about with your Converse Tulsa jersey. You got that Shea autograph at a basketball camp, and considering that, and you're telling that story about Tulsa having that Jordan brand, license for like one season. Now, after we speak, I'm gonna just start doing Google images and start looking for stuff now. Because you got me like thinking, like, man, after talking to Bobby, I need to start like checking this stuff out. So, um, I do
For
appreciate,
sure.
yeah, man. That's awesome. So, where can they find you? With your small business, Bobby.
So you can find me in a couple of different places, predominantly on Instagram and on Twitter. On Instagram, I've got a couple of different Instagram pages. Like my personal one is at the Bobby Mullins, all one word. Same on Twitter. And then if you want to like follow along with my business or my thrifts, it's going to be at Tulsa to Seattle thrifts, I believe. I'll double check and I'll follow up with you on that one, Dandy.
Yeah.
And then I'll also probably send you a link to my eBay store too. So um, everything that I have available before I picked anything up today from the thrift should be listed online that's available. Um, like I said, give it a, if you want to check it out, if you want to like send offers on stuff, that'd be cool too.
Yeah.
I'm never one to just flat out say no to an offer unless you're like gonna like offer at like 70% discount of the listed price. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll send my eBay store. My eBay username is all one word. It's Gonzaga Cubs. But I've got like 440 listings right now, I think. Trying to get closer to that 500
Dang.
number in the next like month or two. But well, any any type of like traffic to any of my socials or eBay store, I greatly appreciate those opportunities to, try to help people get the stuff that they want. Also, like if you want to reach out, feel free to DM me, like shoot me message on Instagram or Twitter. Like if you have something you have questions on gear wise, like I'm more than happy to like help. Like that's another thing. Like we can, this is the collecting community can always benefit from more people being willing to help. Like you're just you're gonna keep people interested that way. You're not gonna like, you know, you don't want to like deter somebody from chasing their passions or their dreams. So the least you can do is to be helpful. Like that's what I say. So I'm here. If people have questions, reach out. I'll do my best to help. And if I can't, I will try to connect you with somebody who can, because there are so many people in this hobby that know way more than I do. And I turn to them constantly. So
That's dope. And I didn't even ask Bobby about his trip to Fanatics Fest. So that's gonna be more to come. We'll probably do a part two. Cause that itself is probably gonna be another part two, right, Bobby? Cause you
I mean,
documented
we
that
could
thing,
definitely
man.
make a part two out of it.
For sure, for sure. So like, I was like I was just watching your stories, and then you had I think you had like a YouTube video too, and then we'll make sure to post that when we get you back on. That was quite the experience that you had there. You did had some, it all started with like, a simple email, and then one thing led to another, and next thing you know, you're at Fanatics Fest in New York, and you kind of gave us like a, from the lens, through your lens, like from your point of view, it was all I can say, that was crazy, but we're definitely gonna talk at the next one.
For sure, for sure. It's,
All
it's
right, guys.
definitely
Yeah.
not a short
No,
conversation.
not
So
at all. That like I said, that itself is gonna be like a part two. So I do appreciate you, Bobby, for coming on. You got, like I said, much respect to your collecting, all your life from childhood to current. Much continued success with your small business. We're big supporters for small business. We hope that we can help you out, get you some traffic, get you some sales on the eBay store, and get you some sales on Instagram on your small business page. So yeah, best wishes to everything, man.
thank you for your time, man. I appreciate the opportunity, and sorry if this ran a little bit long.
No,
So
not at all, man. Like I was just like sitting back, and I was like, wow, I was just like, I'm in awe. Just the stories that you were talking about, and the thing that the apparel that you acquired, especially that King Felix cleat, that's insane. All right, guys. So yeah, this is episode 64. You guys have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.